What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Coach Black, your internet's relationship and breakup coach. Today's topic: 4 scientific reasons why your ex will feel worse over time after the breakup. Now, one of the things you have to understand, if you're struggling through a breakup right now and you're feeling hurt and devastated as to why your ex doesn't seem to care, I want to guarantee you the tables are going to turn. And this is not a wishful statement. This is just the truth. And I'll explain to you why, specifically focused on scientific and practical reasons. And hopefully this gives you the clarity that you need to be able to understand your ex's perspective and what they might go through in the future. Now, the first thing you have to understand is this, is that human beings are not necessarily rational, because some of these things I'm going to explain to you are somewhat counterintuitive, but they are absolutely the truth. And again, these are backed by science. See, the vast majority of people, we like to think that we are logical creatures. We like to think that we're always functioning from a place of certainty and rationality. But in reality, human beings tend to make decisions out of emotion, and then we use logic and reason to justify it. If you think about some of the things that we do or some of the things that we don't do, sometimes if you're thinking of it strictly from a logical perspective, it makes absolutely no sense. Now, if you take the context of the emotion, right? The emotion always gives us the context. All of a sudden, it starts to make perfect sense. Think about someone who is going through some kind of depression, right? Some kind of, mental issue that happened to them, and now they're struggling to get out of bed. And so this person enters this pattern where, maybe they haven't showered in 5, 6, 7 days. They haven't brushed their teeth. They've stopped going to work. From a strictly logical perspective, it's like, why wouldn't you go to work? This is how you pay your bills. Now, when you apply the context of emotion and what this person is feeling and going through, all of a sudden there is some logic as to why they're not doing the things they're supposed to do. This is the same thing that happens during a breakup, because for most people, you're thinking, well, my ex is a dumper. They said they want the relationship to be over. They said they were done. How will they ever change their perspective? What would ever make them shift from that place of certainty to a place of doubt? I want to talk through some of those things and give you scientific reasons, and then hopefully you find this helpful. And if you do, please do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future videos that I put out. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. Reason number 1, and I got my notes here, so if you see me look off to the side, I got bullet points which I'm going to expand on as we talk through this video. Number 1 is called the endowment effect. Now, what the endowment effect basically says is that as human beings, we tend to overvalue things that we have a historical context and emotional investment into, even though these things don't necessarily have the value that we place onto them. Now, let me explain this with a simple example. I want you to think about this because I experienced this personally. One of the things that my dad loved to do, and I've talked about my dad on this channel, he's passed away several years ago. But anytime he would come visit from Nigeria, one of the things we'd do is we'd sit, grab a cup of coffee, and kind of talk about the stock market together and just kind of talk through things. And, oh, this company is doing well. And he was always interested and fascinated with investing. So maybe you have a person in your life that you have that level of closeness with. And so I remember vividly these deep conversations that we would have, and it was almost like a meeting of the minds. It was almost like a deeper level of intimacy that we shared, completely different from the relationship he had with some of my other siblings. Now, the other day, as I was looking at things I wanted to talk about in my next video, I was like, man, it's been a long couple of days, and I was feeling a little drained. I was like, let me grab a cup of coffee. And I remember going into the cabinet, and I go to grab just a random cup, and instantly, I see out of the corner of my eye the cup that my father used to use. And keep in mind, my father passed away over 10 years ago at this point. And that cup is still there. I use it from time to time, but the value of that mug to the average person is $0, because what's the point of buying a used mug that someone else has used? And even if you were to say, okay, I'm going to buy it and wash it, you'd probably pay $1, $2 for a mug like that. But to me personally, that mug is priceless, because it's a physical embodiment of the history, the stories, the memories. I could literally look at that cup and instantly picture the laugh on my father's face or his smile when we would have those conversations. And so to me, that cup is worth millions of dollars, right? I'm never going to sell it. So hopefully I can keep it for a lifetime. This is the same context that happens when someone is going through a breakup. I'm not saying that people are always going to end up staying together forever and ever. I'm saying that the historical context that you have in a relationship with someone, the value of that relationship or that bond tends to grow over time, especially at the ending of the relationship. And the reason for this is because in hindsight, we tend to overvalue the positive and minimize the negative. This is what most people do. Now, initially when a breakup happens, your ex is going to be feeling cold. They go into what's called the relief phase, and I've talked about this on the channel before. I did a video of the 5 stages your ex goes through before they come back to you. I'll link that below so you can check that out as well. But what happens over time as they move away from relief and start to get to a place of curiosity and doubt is that they start to question the decision. And what that leads to is that they minimize the negative things that have happened, because no contact gives them the space. There's a lot of not only physical distance, there's a lot of emotional distance from all these negative things. And then they tend to overvalue the positive, the historical context, the conversation, the laughs, the jokes. And it is these feelings that cause your ex to feel worse, because now they may feel a level of devastation as to, did I make the right decision or not? We overvalue things that we were emotionally invested in, especially when given enough space and time. See, one of the things I need you to understand right now is that you are deserving of love. You are deserving of someone who cares about you, someone who is going to invest in you. And again, this is not about focusing just on getting your ex back or fixing things. I want you to change your mindset to an extent. I want you to understand or get to a place where you feel like, if someone doesn't want me, I don't want them. If someone doesn't want to put in effort to make a relationship work with me, then I'm going to walk away from them and find someone who's going to treat me better. See, a lot of times what people negate to understand is that whatever you're experiencing currently in the physical world, whether it's the job that you have, the relationships you have with the people around you, this breakup, that is basically a manifestation of your internal world. And sometimes people don't want to hear this, but it is the truth. A lot of the things that you believe about yourself, a lot of the things that you're willing to put up with, is what is causing the things that you're actually experiencing. So right now, if your ex is taking you for granted, if your ex is not appreciating you, they are basically mirroring and showing back to you what you think about yourself, right? And so the reason I'm emphasizing that here currently is because I want you to know the kingdom of heaven, nirvana, perfect peace, harmony, whatever it is that you're searching for externally, you can already create that right now inside of you. And if you believe that, if you shift your perspective, not to get all woo-woo, but if you believe that, you can actually start to embody those principles and start to walk and act and talk like that person. And naturally, you'll draw the people to you that are kind of resonating with that, the people that believe that about themselves too. So fixing things with your ex is really easier than you think, but you have to change the internal. Now let's go to scientific reason number 2. Let's jump back to science. We want to talk about loss aversion. Now, loss aversion, I've talked about before on this channel, but it's so important, it's so fascinating, and it's the truth. What loss aversion basically states is that as human beings, we have a tendency to feel more emotional pain or to be more emotionally reactive to loss than the potential of gain. And why that is, I can't actually explain, but like if you think about different examples, it kind of makes sense. So looking at what we were talking about before, as far as you being able to create the world that you want. If you think about the average person currently, that means that if I want to create a world where I'm making more income, I just need to decide to do that right now. And maybe I need to go back to school, or maybe I need to do certain courses. I need to take certain actions to get the better job. But the reality is that most people are not going to do that. Like currently, as you sit today, you can potentially be making $10,000 more, $20,000 more, but most people are not going to take that action because you're comfortable. You have a good job, and it's a good thing. It's able to provide for you and provide for your family. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I want to juxtapose those two things. You have the potential to gain something by getting this new job, but think about how emotionally devastating it would be if you got fired from your job or if you got laid off. Those two scenarios don't hold the same level of pain. Do you feel pain because you could make an extra $10,000 or $20,000 and you don't? It's a nice prospect. It's something fun to think about. I wonder what job I could do to make me an extra couple $1,000s. It sounds fun to think about, right? But you're not experiencing any pain or any devastation. But the mere prospect of getting fired from your job or being laid off would be devastating to most people, because you're actually losing something tangible. And even if you want to equate the two, okay, how much more would it hurt you to lose, let's say your job cut your salary. They cut it by $10,000 or cut it by $20,000. Again, for most people, that would be devastating, because now you're losing what you've grown accustomed to, the lifestyle, which you're able to provide for your family, for your children. Okay, so this is the same mindset and principle that applies to breakups. Why is this? Well, for most people, when they break up with you, they still feel like you're going to chase them. They still feel like you're invested in them and invested in the relationship. And sometimes they think they're going to walk away from you and still have access to love and support. They're still going to have access to you calling them all the time or texting them all the time. And when you go no contact, this is when they finally get to experience the actual loss of the relationship. And most times, because they're not emotionally prepared for this, the loss is sudden. And it becomes devastating when they realize that there is a potential that they will never talk to you again unless they do something. And now the prospect of connecting with someone new is not as attractive as before. The prospect of, oh, maybe the grass is greener is not as attractive as it was before, because a part of them, psychologically speaking, thought that they would get to keep you keep you on the back burner and still have access to you and go do whatever it is that they want to do. All right. And most times they're not prepared for this. This is called loss aversion. We're more reactive to loss than we are to the prospect of gain. Scientific reason number 3, guilt and cognitive dissonance. Now, this one is interesting because this applies to every single one of us. See, the mistake a lot of people make is that people think that breakups exist in the binary, meaning when your ex breaks up with you, instantly their feelings go from 100 to 0. But that's not really the case. The reality is that breakups tend to happen on a spectrum, meaning when you first got in a relationship, maybe your ex's interest in love for you or their love for being in a relationship was at 90%. Now, over time in the relationship, their interest level, their willingness to put efforts to make things work started to diminish. It started to go lower and lower. And usually what happens with this is that they stop showing up for you like they used to. They stop being as kind as they used to. They stop being as affectionate. And as their interest level goes to a place where it's below 50%, now they get to a point where they feel a little more certain that they should break up with you. But it's not that they are 100% sure. This is the mistake people make. And I'm emphasizing this because that means that even when your ex breaks up with you, they are still partially invested in you and partially invested in the relationship. Maybe they're at 30%, maybe they're at 40%, maybe they're at 25%. But the reality is that they still have some feelings below the surface. They still care about you in certain ways. Now, if you handle the breakup properly and you don't beg and chase for too long, you stop trying to fix the relationship and you let them go, you go no contact. Most times what happens, and this is what causes cognitive dissonance in your ex's brain, is that when we make a choice, when we make a decision as human beings, we tend to want to stick with that choice, right? If I say I am, a hardworking person, most times my actions are going to back that. If this is your identity, it's kind of how we think. And so when someone says they're breaking up with you, they've made a choice. They've kind of planted a flag in the sand. This is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Now, over time, they have a need or a tendency to want to stick with their decision. They want to stick with their choice. But because internally they still have some level of feelings for you, which over time tends to grow a little bit, now they're in a place where they have an internal conflict. On one hand, they have said that they're done with the relationship. And on the other hand, they still have internal unresolved feelings for you. And this internal conflict is called cognitive dissonance. Whenever this happens, this actually causes a separate psychological pain, because as human beings, we want to be consistent. We want to be able to have our actions line up with who we say we are. So if on one hand I say I'm done with the relationship, but I'm still thinking about you, this tends to cause us to have feelings of regret. And most times what happens whenever there's a conflict is we have to create a new identity. And so what will happen in some cases is Maybe your ex, this is like a negative perspective. Let's look at that first. Maybe your ex will tell themselves the story that, oh, they never actually loved you in the first place. Now, this helps them to align better with the choice of leaving the relationship, right? That's the negative scenario. But the other flip side is that your ex changes their identity and their mindset, and now they say the breakup was a mistake. I still love them. So in order to align with that choice of still having feelings for you, they convince themselves that they should have never broken up with you in the first place. The point I'm trying to stress here is not about their choice to either leave or stay. It's about understanding that because there's a conflict, they will feel worse over time, regardless of how they choose to overcome that conflict. Again, they can give themselves the excuse that they never loved you, and this helps them move on. That can happen. But in a lot of cases, they convince themselves that the breakup was a mistake in the first place. They should have never done it. If you're enjoying this video, if you're finding it helpful, please do me a favor. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the future videos that I put out. I really do appreciate it, and I thank you for watching. Scientific reason number 4, and the last one, is called rumination on our decisions and psychological entanglement. Now that's a little bit of a mouthful, but let me explain to you like this. With all the other scenarios or reasons and examples that I've given you, what is consistent is that over time, your ex is going to have a more positive reflection on the relationship in hindsight. And most times their negativity about you, especially if you've been in no contact, tends to diminish. Now, when this happens, this is a completely natural human process, is that we tend to ruminate. And what that means is we tend to dwell on the past, and we tend to dwell on if we made the right choice and if we made the right decision. Now, what this does psychologically and what the research shows is that that feeling tends to cause us to feel regret, because one of the things that we like in our life is we like consistency. We like to be able to predict what's going to happen. And for most people, when you're ruminating about something, when you're dwelling about something, and you're starting to look at things from all angles, especially if you're being strong and you're being in no contact and you're respecting yourself, what your ex is experiencing is that they have such a high level of doubt. They start to really wonder about why they made the choices they made in the first place, why they didn't appreciate you, or why they didn't appreciate the relationship. And that experience in of itself causes us to feel deep feelings of loss, deep feelings of regret, and deep feelings of inadequacy. Now, what your ex is going to do with all of these feelings of sadness and regret, it does depend on the person. Now, sometimes people are going to go into external worlds, and this means like they're going to go look for things to occupy themselves. They're going to go look for things to distract themselves to feel better. But this video is just specifically talking about why they will feel worse over time because of these scientific reasons. What they choose to do with those feelings does depend on the person. But most times, if you're in no contact, you're respecting yourself, you understand what you deserve, most times they will come back to you. They will come and send a message and try to see how you react. And when you're coming from a place of strength, when you're coming from a place of non-neediness and not needing the relationship to work and not being desperate and not trying to force things, most times they're the ones that start to pursue you. Because not only do you come off as way more attractive, they also feel like this is their decision. Like they are the ones that are choosing to come back to you. And that's what makes them feel more drawn to you, right? You have to understand that love is a choice. You cannot compel someone to love you. You cannot force someone to love you, that would be servitude, right? It doesn't work that way. What makes love special, what makes love amazing, what makes us crave love is that it's an individual choice that we each make, right? You feel special because you were chosen, and they feel special because you chose them as well. It's not about forcing. Love is about allowing. So you allow your ex to go through this journey, allow them to feel the pain, allow them to experience the loss, and most times they will come back to you. Anyway, I hope this is helpful. If you have any thoughts, comments, questions, please drop them down in the comment section below. If you want to talk to me about your situation and your breakup, click the first link in the description. I'll be happy to talk to you and help you navigate this. Whatever questions you may have, let me know. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.